Hey everybody, it's been a strange couple of weeks for me. I'm in Ottawa as I record this. I'm here with my family. We've had a bit of a family emergency. Now don't worry, everything's fine and it's all under control, but it does mean that I've had to get a little creative with this week's episode. Usually this podcast likes to tell stories about how people help shape life on the coast. This time, I'm flipping that around. This is a story about how the coast helped shape a person. It's one I've actually been wanting to tell, so there's no better time than now, because I'm here with my sister, and this story is about my sister, who doesn't live on the coast. But you'll see the connection very quickly.
It's smoke and ashes, and it's like very, very quiet, but the air is like super thick. It's eerie. You see the ashes, you feel the ashes, you inhale the ashes. You have like a really strange headache. We didn't really understand how quickly this fire was burning and like why wasn't it stopping? You don't understand. You're like, how come they can't just throw water on it and stop it? It's not how wildfires work, apparently.
This is Secret Sunshine. I'm Dominic Gerard. This episode, Sophie escapes wildfires. My sister, Sophie Olson, has lived in Los Angeles for over 20 years. And when the wildfires devastated huge swaths of the city in the last few weeks, the place she calls home very quickly felt very unsafe.
Like the Palisades there was no stopping this fire. And, the fire was happening really close by, 10.5 miles from her home. That's when I got like, oh gosh, wait a minute. We chose to live in these hills. And for the first time, I was like, was this a bad choice? Because you realize that you're not safe. Like, no one is safe when it comes to fires to begin with. But we never really thought that we would be vulnerable to fires.
And this wasn't the first time she's struggled to make sense of a crisis hitting so close to home. In 2020, Los Angeles County was figuratively on fire.
Yeah, it was definitely a deja vu because I don't know if you guys remember, but it's like something called COVID.
Right, it comes up.
Yeah.
That summer, it was normal for the city to wake up every day to tens of thousands of newly reported COVID cases. Every day. And then the state of California, much like in these past few weeks, was also literally on fire. That year, wildfires set a record, burning through more than 4 million acres of land. And all this, the pandemic especially, proved to be too much for my sister.
By July, I was done. I was like, I need to go. I need to go somewhere that's not this.
So Sophie grabbed her husband and her 2 boys, my 2 nephews, packed up their car, left California, and headed straight north, right to the Sunshine Coast, a place that Bonnie and I had just moved to. When these latest wildfires hit LA so hard, it made me wonder if my sister had pictured herself running for the coast again.
The first 2 days were pretty intense. We were lucky. We didn't, lose anything except our sanity for a little bit. But I have friends here who were still displaced by the fire, and multiple friends and families and some of my clients who don't have a home.
What was the moment, if there was one, where you most closely felt like you were in danger, that you were maybe in trouble?
When we heard about the fires before going to bed the night before, I was like, oh, here we go again. Man, we need a good rainfall. And kind of like, good night. And like didn't really think about it. And then in the morning, we wake up, I pour myself a coffee. Outside looks like it's from a post-apocalyptic movie. So I go outside and I can't breathe. And I'm like, what is going on? I was like, oh gosh, is there like a beehive that's been burnt? Because I remember living in like a farm area when I was a kid where they would get rid of bees by burning down the beehive, and chunks of like the the beehive would like come down like ashes. That's what I saw, and I was like, oh, weird. And then saw my patio with like a 1-inch powdery gray snow, and I was like, oh wow, this is close. Then our phones are blowing up, and then evacuation orders are like, it wasn't like evacuate now, it was like be prepared, you might get evacuated. And at this point we had no idea what was going on.
Did you freak out at all?
I did. I mean, you have kids and you have to keep things, like you have to be level-headed about these things. There's been so many tragedies in the last 5 years where you have to just react. But I think like this time I was like, okay, process the information. There's going to be help. The firefighters are going to come soon. Took them a little bit longer than anticipated, but that's going to happen. You're safe right now, and we have insurance. So worst case scenario, like you'll be fine. So the first thing I did, I like brought the boys in the living room. I said, okay, imagine that you had to pack a bag of your favorite belongings. What would you pick? And of course, my oldest son was like, everything is valuable. Nothing is replaceable. My bedroom, the dust on my dressers, like he couldn't. And the little one was like, this stuffy maybe. This book about whales. So we practiced. We got these containers. We put all of our stuff in there. And then I went through all like my jewelry, like not that I have any fancy stuff, but stuff like that I inherited from my grandmother, and like our passports and all that stuff. And then I said, okay, let's pack some bags just to be sure. So we packed 3 days of clothes. Then I kind of did the thing where I looked in the pantry. I'm like, okay, I have a lot of water. And then like post-traumatic stress syndrome, like we have a lot of toilet paper, so we'll be fine. Because God forbid we wouldn't have any toilet paper. So I was set.
But it's not the first time you've had to do this with the kids. This is weirdly like... You've trained for this. Can you talk about the fires of 2020 and what your mindset was?
I panicked. I lost I could not sleep. It was just the craziest thing. School was shut down. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And then in those moments, I was not well equipped with like, what do you do? And then the looting began. And then there was like gunshots fired in the middle of the night. And I was like, I am done. Like I was not prepared for this.
So what made you go, you know what? I'm going to the Sunshine Coast, a place I barely know anything about.
Well, you have a lot of influence in this decision.
Yeah, we moved to the coast in June. We bought a house in the springtime. Not long after COVID, Bonnie and I went shopping.
Yeah, because you toured.
Yeah, we were shopping pretty quick.
You had to wear a mask and you were touring and stuff. So I needed a place to go. We had considered coming to Ontario to be with Mom and to be with my parents in Ontario. But then I was like, if we brought COVID and they're older, like it was all. So then I had like did a bit of research and I was like, oh my gosh, the Persephone. And I kind of Googled the beachcombers and then pictures of the Sunshine Coast. And I was like, this is so beautiful. It was so clean and so charming that in my darkest moments, I would just close my eyes and go, pretend you're there. Just pretend you're there. It was a fantasy. And then you moved into your house. And then I was like I said, like end of June, early July was rough. And I was like, I think I want to go see you. And you were like, cool, come and stay for a couple of weeks. And I was like, I thought I'd stay for a couple of months. Like, sure, come and stay for a couple of months. And I was like, I just spoke to the principal at a school nearby your house. I think we're going to come and move there for a year. And you were like, all right, come on. And we packed up the car and we drove for 4 days. And the minute we got off that ferry and like took off our masks, I think it was the first time for months. So we rented a place in Lower, beautiful place. But my goodness, when we walked into that house, it was late at night. It felt like, okay, we're going to be okay. It was so magical the next morning when we woke up because we were in Lower
Gibsons.
Yeah, in Lower Gibsons. And woke up to like the beautiful sunrise and like hearing the seagulls and looking outside and seeing like the dock and see all this beautiful greenery that we didn't see coming in because it was, it was night. We could see it, but like to actually get a full picture of it under the sunlight and like just sitting on our deck and like, oh my gosh, we are so, so lucky.
How did living on the coast at that time help you manage your own anxieties kind of in general, or did it?
I think that what the Sunshine Coast provided for us at the time was a place to just to re-energize and to cleanse our mental state and our fear. Like it wasn't scary anymore.
So with this latest wildfire outbreak in LA that's gotten close to your house and exercising with the kids, what would you take if you had to go? And let's pack 3 days of clothes. Did the idea of the Sunshine Coast pop up in any way?
Yeah. When we were packing, because what I ended up doing is we packed our bags. The air quality was so bad that I had to actually get the kids out of there. So we went to Long Beach. And I was packing the car and my teenager was like, oh, I don't want to go. Why should we leave? He wanted to stay at home and have his computer time or whatever. And the little one was like, no, let's go. We're going to go have an adventure. And I was like, it'll be fun. He's like, well, what we're going to do? Drive all the way to Gibson's? And I was like, not a bad idea, bro. Not a bad idea. I did think about escaping. Like if we were to actually lose our house, I would be at your house right now. I would be in Gibson's. It's like my baby's, my kid's first Canadian home. And kind of cool to have that experience, to have like escaping some sort of like chaotic mess and ending up in a place that you've never been to before and just feel so warm and welcome and cozy and at home.
But in the end, you didn't go. You didn't feel the need to be that extreme about your escape plan. You stayed in Los Angeles. You stayed in California. And I'm wondering if your experience in the Sunshine Coast that first time, during COVID, during those wildfires, if there's something about that experience that prepared you to be able to manage this crisis differently.
I should say yes, but I'm going to say, I'll be honest and say it was like the best cocktail I've ever had in my life. Escaping to Gibson was like, I'm good. I'm going to drink this margarita and the world can fall apart. I'm in Gibson's. I'm protected, and then I'm in my own little bubble. Do I think about that when times are tough? Like, there's a couple of times where, and presently, we're going through a big change in the country, and do I ever think about, where would I go? No, I would go to Gibson's. Like, it's my escape.
What is it then about your life in LA and the community you've built there? What parts of that are what keeps you in LA still?
I mean, when we left Gibson's and when we drove back to Los Angeles and got there, some people would say it's so dry and it's so ugly, and it is, but we were so happy because it is home. It's weird. I've been there for 21 years. It's home. We have a community. We have a group of families that have kids the same age as our kids. And so we've built a world for us, a life for us from nothing, literally from nothing. And sometimes I'll hang out with some of my Canadian friends and they're like, girl, like we know why you're there, but come on, you got to be starving to come back to Canada. And I say yes and no, because Canada is my first home, but LA is my now home.
So until LA burns to the ground.
To the crisp. Until LA does not exist anymore, we're close. We're close. I think this is the right place for us for now. I don't know, maybe in a year it'll be different.
Or not.
Or not.
Even now, 5 years into living in Gibson's, I think about how wild it was that we just packed up in June of 2020. We moved here with other friends who, just like us, were trying to escape the pandemic in some way. So to come here, barely settle in, and then 2 months later, welcome my American sister, my brother-in-law, my 2 nephews, who essentially moved around the corner from us, well, it was pretty special. Of course, the anxiety of COVID surrounded and tempered the whole experience. Even here, you couldn't escape that existential dread. But for about 8 months, we had family here with us. We had our first Sunshine Coast Halloween with a pair of young, bratty nephews dressed as woodland creatures. We had Christmas here together. We had birthdays together. We watched the results of the 2020 U.S. election together. What a different time that was. Together, we just tried our best to make life a little more normal. Kind of our own little come-from-away story, minus the musical numbers. And look, Sophie might say that time in Gibson's, for her, was a breath of fresh air for her sanity, and that it was just that, and that's enough for her. But I like to think that despite what she says, that time she spent here on the coast, maybe it imprinted just a little bit of calmness in her brain. And I like to think that little bit of calmness has maybe helped her deal with other crises since. Regardless, I'm her big brother, so what I says generally overrules what she thinks anyway. I mean, that's just a basic family rule, right? Secret Sunshine is hosted and produced by me, Dominic Gerard. Sound design from Gaëtan Harris at Syrup Sound. The show's original theme is composed and performed by Max Henry. Now, really, I do want to hear from you. Let me know what you think of the show, or if you have similar stories like this one that you enjoy sharing. You can find me on Instagram or grab an email address. Both of those links are in the show notes to this episode, or just head to the show's website, secretsunshine.ca.